Okay, welcome to our Terrace Talk chat today. We have Bick from Blues for All, who is the co-founder of the supporters group, and he's the group secretary, and he's an advisory member of the Funds for Diversity Guidance group and a community volunteer. And we also have Gemma from Bias, who's been a fan of Brentford for 25 years, a committee member of Bias, which is the Brentford Independent Association of Supporters, and the founder of LGBeeT. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining me today. Nice to see you both. I'm excited to sort of talk about some of the elements of mental health campaign and also Terrace Talk. So we are here today to talk about the Football Supporters Association's Terrace Talk campaign, which is a mental health initiative. It's led by supporters, and it's meant to highlight and celebrate all the great work that's being done locally by supporters groups, as well as try to do some key events on this really important topic. So delighted to have you both here today. So I just wanted to come to you first. How did you arrive at having an interest in mental health?
During the pandemic, we had I knew family members, friends, support group members as well that were having issues at the time. So they were really struggling with their mental health, depression, anxiety. And a lot of these guys who I watch football with and go to the matches, they needed help. So we just definitely thought, what can we do? You know, I care about these people. We're part of a community. Is there anything we can do as football fans and just people that are part of a close-knit community? How can we help others? So it was definitely something we wanted to get involved in.
Lovely. And Gemma, is that sort of your experience? How did you sort of grow your interest in this area?
Yeah, for me, interest in mental health is quite personal. I myself have generalised anxiety. I've got many friends and family who have various problems with mental ill health. Some of them long term. Some of them, maybe they're suffering because someone that they care about is also having a hard time. And then I think as well, exactly as Bick says, you know, all of those things have been exacerbated in the last year, not least because the ways that we would choose to look after ourselves and our mental health, a lot of them have been unavailable to us. Also for me, I work in construction, and so there's a big focus on mental health in the construction industry at the moment, which is needed and which is really good. And of course, you know, even within football, you know, working in the football and diversity space, as we both do, I think it's an area where there are also a lot of people who suffer, various issues and ups and downs with their mental health. So, yeah, it's something that has been in my life as a focus for a long time. But, you know, exactly as we all know, that's come to a head recently.
Yeah, definitely. And so realistically on this chat, we're trying to focus on the why too. Why get involved in mental health? And, you know, obviously everybody has their own experiences and histories around this topic. In terms of specifically focusing in on football, how have you been affected, Gemma, by not going to matches and, you know, not being in the crowd and doing your usual match day routines?
Yeah, it's been one of those things that I didn't. When it first started, we were so focused, you know, as a Brentford fan, we were so focused on the loss of football as it was the loss of Griffin Park and the loss of the ability to say goodbye to Griffin Park. Which I think hit a lot of people quite hard because it's such an emotional connection is with your football ground. And that was something that was really kind of a big thing for us. And then afterwards, you start to realise the lack of it in different ways, because we're all used to having sort of breaks from going to football in the close season and stuff. And so it doesn't necessarily hit you until a little bit later. You think, you know, you start to realise the real benefit of going to a game. And I go to a lot of games where else in life do you get the opportunity to just stand and shout? You know, I mean, okay, maybe a lot of you go to the gym a bit more than I do, but again, you know, especially standing on a terrace, you know, you're moving all the time, you're reacting to something, you're you're in a moment, and I think especially for people like myself who suffer with conditions like anxiety, where actually it's very easy to get in your head and stay there. Actually, something like being at a football match and engaged with everything that's going around you, it's a form of mindfulness as well. And all of those things, and the relationships, the conversations, the small talk and the big talk, that goes on in the pubs beforehand, in the chippy, on the terrace, all of those things, I think they've just suddenly come out of our arsenal of ways we can look after ourselves and our mental health and us. I don't want to say souls, but our souls, right at the time when all these other worries have come in, and we suddenly need that more than ever. So yeah, it's had a real effect on me, and I know it's had a real effect on a lot of people that I know personally, I must admit.
And Vic, would you say it's a similar situation for you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Gemma's just said there. Football's a massive part of my life, and not just myself, but other fans. And it's a big part of escaping as well from whatever issues you have behind the scenes in your home life, in your personal life. When you go to a football game, you see your friends, you have all the rituals that you have pre-match, post-match, the analysis, the communication, verbal and non-verbal. And again, Gemma, that chance to just shout and scream, and you can't knock it, to be honest.
People don't like it if you do it in meetings.
No.
But, different tone.
Yeah. So it's an escapism. So it's just something, and when that's missing, you have to fill that void. And what else is there? What do you do? And especially then when you've got the restrictions that we've got in terms of with the pandemic, it's going to be testing. It's going to be testing for most people.
So I had a conversation recently with someone. I've got a 2-year-old, and you watch them play, and they have these moments of joy. They have this time, it's this time when it's just like yay about something, and you think to yourself, actually, as a grown up, how often do you have that? And actually, there aren't very many times. And one of those times is at football or related to football, and it is so valuable. And I think until I suppose don't take my Brentford away. I suppose it's one of those things you don't realise the value of it until it's suddenly not there. And it's huge.
And I think it just goes, so many supporters that the FSA have been in touch with are saying such similar things, and that's why it's so important. Terrace Talk has been such an important campaign to try to recognise the massive hole that the departure of football in the typical sense has left. So when we're thinking about the why too of potentially getting supporters groups and trust involved in a mental health project, we're starting to form a picture of why the EFL network in particular wanted to push forward on this and start to celebrate what supporters groups were doing locally. So in terms of across our networks, we've seen lots of different activities. So we've seen kind of bigger scale things, sort of mental health hubs being set up, but we've also seen sort of the kind of startups of certain projects. So I know both of you have had are kind of starting to look at what potentially your groups might do. So could you just talk to me, Vic, a little bit about what your group has done recently in terms of mental health and for your supporters and members?
Yeah. No, when we got to Project Restart, we started doing pre-match Zoom calls for every fixture. We were watching a few games as well when we can, but the main idea behind that was just so that we've got people, if they needed help, if they wanted to reach out, it gave them an opportunity to connect with us. So that's something that we definitely always wanted to do. I mean, it's one thing having a nice get together, but there is also another meaning behind it, and that's the mental health awareness aspect. The other part is, one of the things we've also done is to add the entertainment value. We've been able to engage with former players to get them to join us on a Zoom call, and they can talk about the good memories, the bad memories. They can answer lots of questions, and it's been really helpful for some of the guys, some of the members, and some of the friends, the people that have joined, just to talk to them and see some of their heroes. And that's added. It's made the from that entertainment value, that for example, if you brought someone that scored a cup-winning goal or something, and you get to talk to one of your heroes, it brings up that nostalgia. So it's a feel-good vibe for most people. So that's helped. We've also set up alternatives, like where we've had a walking club and a running club. So whereas we'd be able to have a buddy so we could walk along and go running with, and it's a way of checking up on everybody and seeing if everyone is okay. So that was just an alternative, and we can still talk about football. We can still moan about the results, and just the things football fans would typically talk about. We can cover those off in conversations. Future projects, I think the other thing is fundraising. We've committed to try and do a few events, which now that the restrictions are getting more relaxed, we'll be able to put on some football tournaments and just make sure everyone's involved, so it just feels like they're not missing out on anything. So it's not like we've got professional athletes or anything like that. It's just for everyone with mixed ability. So if anyone wants to volunteer, participate, play, so we're just using that angle as well to still be involved with football whilst we're not actually in the stadium. So it's just something that we've tried to definitely get close to.
So some really fantastic ideas, and I love the idea of the walking buddy or the running buddy, you know, getting out into nature and kind of like just trying to feel. I always think it's better when you move or you can move or get out into the fresh air. So yeah, that's just such a lovely idea. And Gem, you're currently exploring ideas, you know, within your group. So is there anything you've got your eye on in particular to do?
Yeah, we are exploring. I've just made some notes from what Vic said there, so I might stick some of that on my list. I think one of the things with our group, and one of the things that I think is really important for anyone watching this to think about is, you know, depending on how much resource you have available or how many people are, you know, very involved with your group, or how even active or how much time they can have, you know, there's still something you can do. So we're structuring our aims for the next 18 months, and we're looking at various things. We're going to send out a survey to our membership really soon, just to get an idea from them about what they feel they would need and what they would want from us, because we're very aware that a fan group is a place to connect in some ways, and it's probably not a place necessarily to do certain things. So we're asking people what they want. One thing we've got a focus on, something that I'm quite passionate about, is about getting people to talk to each other. It's something that we talk about a lot in work, about, you know, getting people to connect with each other, especially if they're working away from home and things like this. And I think this is something that, you know, even if you don't necessarily have a massive amount of resource in your fan group or your organisation, that's always something you can do, and that's, you know, working to start conversations, working to make links between people. And, you know, we're doing a lot at the moment talking with the club about how we move into our new stadium, which we've had a couple of games with fans, but really we haven't moved in. But in that move, people who used to sit together now don't. People are sitting in different places with different people. Some of those match day rituals that we're also attached to will have changed. And one of the things that we're looking at is actually how can we help fans reconnect or connect with people around them in the ground or people that they haven't met before? How can we get those relationships started and those conversations started? And so kind of also bringing the mental health conversation into something that is sustainable as a friendship or sustainable as a link. And I think that's really important. And that's kind of some of the things that we're looking at. So just how we can make those links that have been potentially broken, how we can either replace them or how we can reconnect them. So that's
amazing
that's
stuff. I mean, it's interesting. I love the fact that you've just said, I've just written down some stuff that Vic said, because this is exactly absolutely the purpose of the video, is to try to just give people some inspiration, you know, and know that you don't have to do the massive projects, particularly if you've got less resource or you just don't have the capacity to do it, you know, or you want to start and take small steps. It's so important to try to talk to each other. This is the power of the network, right? Is getting inspiration and ideas from each other. So it's definitely, you know, it's great to sort of hear you say that live on this call, and hopefully other people will take heart from that. I think I just wanted actually to pick your brains on something. You know, vulnerability is really hard just generally, I think, sometimes, but in football, you know, vulnerability might be even harder in some senses. So, you know, do you think that it's a case of trying to encourage people to be more vulnerable and to, you know, open up a little bit more, and can the two marry up? Gemma, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think it's one of those things that is difficult. It's difficult in general, let's be honest. You know, it's difficult to be vulnerable in a long-standing close friendship sometimes. Mm-hmm. And to do that with people that you know less well, or people that you know don't know at all, can be harder. And then again, sometimes it can be easier. I mean, I know from, and we all know from standing or sitting in the ground, actually you'll hear a bit of someone's conversation. You'll be like, that's hugely deep. These guys don't even know each other. But in a way, sometimes just standing next to someone who you don't know and being able to just express something, you know, knowing that you're not necessarily going to see that person again, that can be helpful. But I think one of the real reasons why I think it's important to focus on connections and starting conversations is once we've done that, we can help people think about actually the next step. You know, and a lot of the time when we talk about mental health, we talk about how are you really, you know, and this is something that I think a lot of people have talked and been practicing actually during the pandemic, just in our own relationships, haven't we? You know, and if we can start getting people first just to chat and then to think, okay, how are you? But how are you really, you know? And all of these conversations, if someone's feeling alone or someone doesn't have something they don't feel they can express, you know, every connection with another person is going to have value in that, you know, and even if you can't provide, you know, mental health advice or counselling or any of those things, you know, what you can do is you can just have a conversation, and everybody can do that, and every single conversation has value, you know. So even at the smallest level, there's always that. That answers your question. I can't even.
Yeah, no, I got
carried away.
No. Yeah, and Vic, do you have any thoughts in terms of anything that Gem's just said, or kind of the vulnerability side of things?
I'd agree with Gemma. Communication is key. The more opportunities you can get to speak to people and just talking. Sometimes you might know people that you're not comfortable to share things with, and you may end up meeting a complete stranger. And you're in that scenario where you can tell them everything, and it might help you. But initially, as a group, we're just trying to make sure that we give everyone that safe space and they have the opportunity to just communicate with us. And we're not going to judge anybody. You know, that even if it's something, it doesn't have to be something that has to be a specific, like a pre-match or a post-match call with the rest of the guys. It can always be something done. It could be done separately. It could be on a one-to-one basis. The other thing is we're making, as a supporters group, we're making more. We're getting more people involved who are more experts in terms of mental health as well. So we can lean on them as well to support the people that are having problems and things like that. So, but I'd agree with you, Gemma, that it's a tough one, whether it's football or just in general. When you're vulnerable, you're vulnerable. So
yeah, and there's something valuable, isn't there, in knowing you're not alone. You know, and I think with the work that we do in some of the diversity-based groups as well, you know, like ours, actually there's value in someone just connecting with someone, and even just knowing that they're there. You know what I mean? And just knowing that actually it's not just you that maybe doesn't always feel comfortable in a space, or not just you that thinks they're the only one, you know, who likes football but also likes, I don't know, whatever it is, or feels a certain way, or is in a certain demographic. And sometimes just not knowing you're not alone is something that, you know, that's really important, and we can all help with that.
Definitely. I think with as well with the supporters groups, it's like the bravery just to even say, oh, you know, I'm not feeling good today, or I've had this experience in my life. It could just provide a bit of comfort to somebody. I know I've been on webinars or heard people talk in the past where they've mentioned something that they feel, and I thought, oh, that's actually just made me feel a bit better because I might be having the same experience. So yeah, it's really interesting thoughts, guys. So thanks for sharing those. In terms of if we just revisit kind of like the resource aspect and acknowledging that a lot of groups might not have the capacity or the setup in order to do you know, massive projects on this, but want to do some element of work or activity within mental health and hopefully under the Terrace Talk campaign. Have you got any top tips, Vic, if we go to you first, in terms of exploring projects in this area or starting to kind of like put your toe in the water to do some projects?
Yeah, I would definitely say reach out to some of the experts. You've got charities such as like Mind, Rethink, attend a few webinars as well, and especially on mental health awareness, make sure that you try, if you get a chance, attend those. They will help. And whatever your learnings are, share it with talk about it openly, talk about it freely with your community, with your groups. Don't hide the fact that you're attending it. You know, just let everybody know what you've learned from a recent webinar or from what you've been told. Also get connected with this. There's a lot of ambassadors. So from a football supporters group point of view, there's a lot of ex-players who are like, they're big advocates for mental health awareness. So link in with someone, link in with a player, a former player, a current player, and see if there's anything you can do, and if you can try and promote some with them. That'd be very useful. I think anything else, Gemma, anything you can throw in?
Yeah, I think first thing, most important thing, I think, don't think that because you can't do something big, you can't do anything. You can definitely do something, even if it's sharing a tweet, even if it's, you know, putting out information on how people can contact resources if they need to. But I would say, you know, look at things like the resources on the FSA website. You know, look at what other groups are doing. That we can all put you in contact with groups who are doing something and who can help you start up with something if that's what you want to do. But also, I think, you know, we quite often look outside, but you can talk to your committee members, you can talk to your members of your group, you know, put out a questionnaire. Who knows about this? Actually, does anyone work in this space? Can we get help that way? If you've got a good relationship with the club, you can talk to your club or their community trust or whatever they have available. You know, and I think really something is better than nothing. Something informed. You know what Vic says about, you know, doing a bit of reading, listen to a couple of events or webinars. You know, that is important, but it doesn't actually have to be that much work to do that. And if you're echoing, you know, the key organisations, that's still someone seeing that they might not have seen it, and it's all still important. So yeah, I think small actions are still valuable, is what I would say. But yeah, definitely look around and see, you know, who you have actually close to you, who's got skills, who can help you.
Definitely. I do genuinely think the small steps as well do have such a massive impact, or a bigger impact than we even really realise. So retweeting your local Mind and signposting people and giving advice like that is really important. What I would encourage as well from an FSA perspective is talk to the other supporters groups and do talk to your network manager. So we've got some brilliant work being done in the Premier League by the Premier League groups. We've got watch alongs and other kind of activity happening in the women's game. Fantastic sort of initiatives happening in community owned clubs and national leagues. So do go and talk to your network manager as well. And we're here to help from an FSA perspective and connect you with people that might also be able to offer some expertise and are running some really great projects. So I would encourage everybody who's hopefully watching this to do that and come and chat to us. So guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you both. Thank you so much for joining us on the Terrace Talk chat, and fingers crossed we've inspired some people during this conversation, but really appreciate your time today. So hope to see you again soon.